So welcome everyone to the 12-Step Big Book Workshop. My name is Lisa and I am your facilitator. I am a longtime student of the 12 Steps method of recovery. I began with Alateen and I progressed to CODA, Al-Anon, OA, so many others. And I'm so glad to see you all here tonight. And I'm so excited for the freedom we're all going to feel. So I invite you to join me in the set-aside prayer, and I would hope we can absorb it with an open mind and an open heart, with the readiness to embrace the gift of receiving it with its amazing power from all of our higher powers. So if you'd like to go along with me, that's fine. Higher power, please set aside everything that I think I know about myself, my honesty and reality as they relate to step 4, so that I may have a new experience with my step 4 inventory, my intentions, and my desire to co-create with your power for the highest good. So here we are, launching into the second stage of our recovery journey and into the metaphorical rocket launch. Steps 1, 2, and 3 were the first stage, which consisted of getting on board into that rocket by deciding we need and want more efficient power and committing to turn toward a new freedom. But now comes the real work. Even if we are still trapped in the lockdown of our addiction and unmanageability, we must be willing to go to any length to take the next steps. We did not end up with a serious addiction by living a perfect lifestyle and enjoying a flawless character. Bill says, when we look back at our history, it's easy to focus only on the first half of step 1, which is came to believe a power greater than myself could lead us to sanity. But from my perspective, the real magic happens in the second half, where we confront our unmanageability. We have to face the fact that we are powerless over reality and entirely ineffective when operating on our own limited power. Recognizing this exhaustion is exactly what forces us towards step 2, forming what Bill W. beautifully calls the spiritual arch, and that's on page 47 if you want to look at it. So Bill carries the spiritual arch metaphor all the way from step 1 through step 5. Think of it as a construction project. Step 1 is your foundation. Step 2 is the cornerstone, which is simply your willingness to try. Then comes step 3, the cornerstone. That's the central block that holds the entire structure together. By the time we hit step 5, Bill asks us, are the stones in place? Meaning the bricks of that arch are made of the step 4 resentments we just cleared out. And tonight, we're beginning our journey into step 4. Over the next few weeks, we will take a deep, honest look at the internal pressures that drive us. This overview sets the stage for that vital work, preparing us to explore the exact sources of our emotional conflicts. In the big book, Bill breaks down our core behavioral challenges into 3 distinct categories: resentments, fears, and inappropriate sexual behaviors. We focus heavily on these specific areas because they create the severe internal tension that ultimately delivers us back to our addictions. When we leave our grudges, anxieties, and relationship patterns unaddressed, we inevitably look for a habit to soothe that pain. The entire point of this process is to uncover these roots, causing us to break the cycle and find a healthy way forward without returning to our addictions. Next week, we will dive directly into our first topic as we learn how to understand and dismantle our resentments. So let's look at what actually blocks us. Resentment, fear, and unhealthy sexual behaviors create an intense, toxic friction inside of us. When Bill wrote the Big Book, he didn't explicitly define what inappropriate sex meant. Why? Because it isn't about rules. It is about identifying your own harmful, unhealthy patterns. And the same applies to dishonesty. Bill never explicitly uses the word secret in the chapters on step 4 and 5, but look between the lines. Secrecy is heavily implied. The things we hide are exactly what keeps us sick, isolated, and bound to our old ways. So what is the ultimate point of digging up these secrets and fears? It's so that we can achieve two distinct types of freedom outlined in step 1. Physical freedom, breaking the literal chains of active addiction, and spiritual freedom is overcoming the unmanageability, the spiritual malady, and the painful human condition that drove us to use in the first place. And let's be clear about the real enemy here. Unmanageability is not just a symptom of addiction, it is the baseline human condition. It is the underlying engine that drives us to use. If we do not effectively manage the everyday problem of being human, we will inevitably default right back to our addiction in full force. As we've noted, Bill uses the word recovered throughout the Big Book in the past tense, starting right on the title page. He states boldly that thousands of men and women have recovered. But he also issues a vital warning. We are not cured. We do not get a permanent pass. So looking at pages 84 and 85, Bill explains that the first 9 steps successfully remove the active addiction, placing us in a position of total neutrality toward our old behaviors. But maintaining that neutrality requires action. We have a daily reprieve that is contingent entirely on maintaining our spiritual condition. And on page 85, Bill defines this ongoing work as the proper use of our will and our mind. So the code Bill uses is 3 little words: way of life. That sentence refers to steps 10, 11, and 12. As long as on a daily basis we reduce the tension when we are disturbed with step 10, we sit in the presence of power in the morning or whenever it is that we wake up and start to plan our day, and we ask for and will receive guidance. We sit in prayer or meditation in the evening or whenever it is that we retire, and we do an inventory to see how we did with our 10th step, checking our character for defects, as well as our contribution. And then in step 12, we operate on our principles. Our spiritual life is a life of principles. Our human life is a life of principles. Our civilized life is a life of principles. And one of those principles is altruism, such as how can I help others or another addict in my fellowship? But in the biggest of philosophies is how can I contribute to humanity around me? Not just in the fellowship, not just in addiction. We walk through this spiritual arch to a new freedom. And hopefully everybody's doing 10, 11, and 12. 10 is the spot check that we do when we're having our day, do whatever our day does. And if at the end of the day you didn't have a chance to do that, which is positively fine, we then take a review of our day and see if there's anywhere we need to make amends. In the morning, when we first wake up, we want to start our day with step 11, which is contemplation, prayer, meditation. We want to check in with our higher power. We want to see where our day is going to go in a spiritual way. And then step 12, of course, is the service step, which means that we take the time to help wherever we can. Now, service is what's written in the big book, but it's really about just helping another human being. And I've explained that it could be as simple as returning your shopping carriage back to the front of the store before you jump in your car and take off. That's service. So it's important to do those 3 steps every single day. It will keep you in the best shape of your life. So here we have, remember the image of lost Lisa. She's chained and she's bound by her own suffering. If you look closely, those chains are not attached to anything. She remains imprisoned only because she's the one unknowingly holding them, a victim of her own illusions and delusions. She is bound by her fears for as long as she holds on to that ball and chain. It is an illusion, not a physical reality, but the pain that it causes is very real. This is why we take a 4th step to identify the self-imposed chains that we wrap around ourselves, which strip away our joy and freedom. I know this is a lot to absorb and understand or even agree with right now. If you've never completed a big book 4th step, it's completely normal if the truth of this has not clicked for any of you yet. At its core, a moral inventory is about taking a serious, honest look at ourselves. And this can include our behaviors, our attitudes, our past actions, and how those actions may have hurt others or ourselves. It's not about shame or self-judgment. It's about clarity. Let's decipher the term moral inventory for a moment. Bill viewed addiction as a disease of the mind and spirit. So when he used moral inventory in step 4, it is meant to mean an objective stock taking of one's ego-driven behaviors. It is not an exercise in guilt, but a tool for self-awareness. And I did a little digging because when I was preparing this for the workshop, I noticed that word in there, that moral word, because we're always saying this disease is not a moral issue. But there it is right in step 4, which is why I wanted to clarify it, because I literally wanted to take it out of step 4 because it was against everything it's been saying. So it was really just that he wanted it to be a very objective, not necessarily meaning we morally are wrong or we're morally sick or any of those things. It's just really a personal inventory of ourselves. And it's to understand who we are. We have to look at our organic survival gifts. These are the primal instincts driven by the brainstem, the very first part of our 3 brains. And by examining human evolution, we can truly grasp how this anatomy sets the stage for the immense benefits of the 4th step. By looking at your past through this lens, you shift from a place of paralyzing shame to a place of objective biological understanding. You realize you are not broken. Your basic survival machinery was simply misfiring. And our instinct for fight is a survival instinct. If we can't fight it, we run from it, which is flight. When you look at your inventory sheets, your character defects are simply primitive survival instincts applied to modern, non-lethal situation. So here's exactly how the fight or flight sequence manifests across the columns of your 4th step. So number one, the fight response equals columns 1 and 2. The resentment and the cause. When your instincts, such as your security, social status, or your sexuality, are threatened, your brain stem's default setting is to attack. You cannot physically maul the person who hurt you, so your brain converts that survival energy into mental fighting. How it looks on your inventory could be resentment, grudge holding, gossiping, sabotaging, and retaliation. And then we have the survival illusion. Your brain tells you, if I stay angry at this person, I am keeping myself safe from them. But the reality is that resentment is a chronic, low-grade fight response that stays trapped in our body, burning through our nervous system until we require an addictive action, substance, to shut it off. The flight response is part of column 4, and it's our behavior. When you realize you cannot win the fight, meaning you cannot control the person, the place, or the situation, your brain switches over to flight. You must escape the threat to survive. How it looks on your inventory would be running away from financial debts, ghosting relationships, lying to avoid confrontations, geographical cures, and ultimately using our addictions. Then we see that our survival illusions tell our brain, if I escape this uncomfortable feeling right now, I'll survive. But the reality is, active addiction is the ultimate form of flight. It is a chemical escape from the unbearable reality of a misfiring survival system. The freeze response is the blind spots, when you could neither fight your circumstances nor successfully run away from them. Your nervous system collapsed into a freeze state. How it looks on your inventory would be denial, procrastination, victimhood, playing dead, the poor me's, and emotional numbness. The reality, in column 4, you will often find places where you did absolutely nothing to fix a situation, allowing it to rot because you were too frozen by fear to take any action. And when you think about the 4th step as a tool for unmasking these defense mechanisms, it becomes a way to strip away the instinct to freeze, hide, flee, or disappear. The 4th step is designed precisely to expose the survival instincts that previously showed up as deceit, denial, and people-pleasing. By methodologically listing fears, resentments, and behaviors, we replace the instinct to hide with honest self-awareness, allowing us to reclaim our true identity rather than one dictated by survival or addiction. Fight and certainly anger are the reactions that come from instincts at the primal level of the limbic system. Anger and the urge to fight are basic survival triggers built deep inside our brain. It controls our raw emotions and basic survival drives. When you feel threatened, this deep brain system takes over. It instantly floods your body with energy to defend yourself. And this sudden burst of survival energy feels like intense anger. This happens automatically before your thinking brain can even process that it's happening. And we have the fear and dishonesty when we're isolated. Instead of protecting our physical body from actual danger, our brain uses fear and dishonesty to protect our identity, pride, and emotional comfort from pain or exposure. Bill calls this instincts gone awry, and it's imperative to understanding. While this keeps our egos temporarily safe, it traps us inside a cage of our own making, like Lost Lisa. And then when anger is held for any period of time, whether for 1 hour or an entire day, it hardens into a resentment. The initial flash of anger is simply a primal animal instinct to fight, but humans weaponize this reaction by pairing the chemical rush with mental memory. Instead of letting the threat pass, we replay the event, trapping that survival energy inside ourselves as a lasting emotional grudge. The exact same process happens with our survival instincts when we hold on to an immediate flash of fear and refuse to let it go. It loops through our mind and transforms into chronic anxiety. And what do we do with dishonesty in the 4-step inventory is expose the lie by naming the exact fear that created it in the first place. Just like freezing is a primal physical instinct to avoid being seen by a predator, dishonesty is a psychological freeze response. It is your mind screaming, if I don't tell the truth, they won't see the real me and I'll be safe. To break out of this frozen state, you must use the inventory to dismantle this lie. And in human beings, dishonesty manifests as either an intentional choice or an unconscious defense mechanism to protect the self. In the 4th step, Bill introduces the sex inventory as a specific category to examine this behavior, requiring us to look honestly at past conduct to identify where we were selfish, dishonest, manipulative, or inconsiderate, and how those actions harmed ourselves and others. Because this inventory often exposes unhealthy behaviors, intense shame is frequently attached to it, leaving some of us trapped in a painful emotional loop. When writing our 4th step, the sex or conduct inventory, we look at our entries and actively cross out the shame language. If you write, I am a manipulative person, change it to, I used manipulative behavior in that moment because I was afraid. This shifts you from a frozen, helpless state into an active human being who can make a change. The goal of this process is not self-punishment, but rather to gain deep self-knowledge, identify core character defects, take responsibility for our actions, and map out a healthy new ideal for future relationships. This is what creates the false self. Bill doesn't use that term in the same way, but he does talk about the actor and the director in many different places in the big book. He uses the metaphor that we have the ability with our mind and our will to know and to make decisions to identify the obstacles in ourselves, and then to identify that I am not any more than I am, but also not any less than I am. And I am just like everybody else, and the richness of this workshop is that you will hear it reinforced and confirmed from everybody who does this work and who shares it. It's an amazing experience that we are all so similar, so much the same. It really is amazing. So the 4th step identifies the masks that we wear. Over the time that is spent addressing the 4th step and all of its components, we'll eliminate the mask and over time of doing the step work. Not just step 4, but 5 through 9, which is the completion of the removal of the false self, the Hollywood storefront. We all have a biology that creates our genetics. You've probably seen some people use the dolls, the Matryoshka dolls, because they nest all together. But our culture starts in our family. It determines our survival instinct. And the mask and the persona we developed in our family's culture, whatever that means to you, it may not be a biological family, but wherever it is, the culture is there. I grew up in my external and my family culture determined my reactions to my life. But also my emotions and the experiences I had. It determined a whole bunch of the components of that Hollywood storefront, the false self. My education and my psychological, emotional reactions, the informations that I got from the people around me, the schools I attended, the neighborhood I lived in, and the people who were in my social group affected it. And some refer to this as human spirit, and some call it the soul. The Buddhists call it the original face. The Christians and the Jews talk about the image and likeness of God. The New Age people speak of it as the spark of the divine. And what they're all collectively talking about is the true self that has been covered up layer upon layer upon layer, so that at some point we don't even know who we are. And the whole point of step 4 is to unpack those layers so that we can, in fact, finally come up to who we are. So in the big book, Bill asks us to identify and analyze our self-centeredness. He says on page 62, selfishness, self-centeredness is the root of our problems. Selfishness and self-centeredness is the root. Well, the fruit of the root is our survival instinct of fight, translated into resentments, as we talked about earlier, or our fears. And then we have our sexual misconducts. These are the 3 components of the step 4 inventory. And we'll add another one to include guilt and sex, words that are not in the big book in the same way that we use them in our culture today. But it wouldn't be complete without adding guilt and shame. Herb will have some special instructions at the end of step 4 from his experience and knowledge of having done these, and also 5th steps with many, many people, so that people are prepared to bring their 4th step to what I consider to be a really nice and tidy conclusion by overturning all the rocks, opening all the closed doors, shining the light into all of the darkness to the best of our ability. In the 12 and 12, Bill used a very different model. He uses the 7 capital sins. And the 12 and 12 was published in 1953. Bill had been under the mentorship of a Catholic priest, Father Ed Dowling, since 1940. This is clear evidence of it. This is a Catholic schema of the sources of the problems of human nature. And we're looking at this because it's in the 12 and 12 in chapter 4. It is not a model that I would personally use, as I am not a believer of sin. So I don't have much experience using this, but it is pointed out as a recommended step in the 12 and 12 as a supplemental. It's complementary to the Bill's work. So I am including it, but as I said, I don't buy into the whole greed, gluttony, all of that. I don't believe in sin. So take it as you like it or leave it behind. It's up to you. So back on page 63, at the very bottom of the page, Bill said, next, we launched out on a course of vigorous action. The first step of which is a personal house cleaning. After the third step, we are launching. So he's still using the rocket launch metaphor. On a course of vigorous action. Not just action, but vigorous action, with the first step of that vigorous action being a personal house cleaning. Step 4 is only a component of the entire course. Bill says on page 64, which many of us had never attempted. Not changing our thoughts, attitude, and feelings, and especially our behaviors, keeps us operating in the same callous, insensitive way that we have been operating in when we have been using. And Bill describes step 4 as a vital crossroads, and it's really significant, it's life-changing, and especially when it's done with a healthy interpretation. If it's not done the right way, well, there is no wrong way to do the 4th step, but it is possible to have some misinformation in there, so it's definitely worth looking at it and making sure it's done properly. At the very least, we're taking action in the right direction with Bill in agreement saying, though our decision is vital and crucial, step 3 could have little permanent effect. And what Bill means is it might have a temporary effect, but it won't have any permanent effect unless that once followed by a strenuous effort, meaning the 4th step. And a strenuous effort, Bill gives it a jackhammer effect, to know and to be rid of, meaning to face and take action. Remember, we saw the concept of what makes us specifically human. We discussed that when we did step 1 regarding the mind and the will. This is a dominant rhythm that Bill uses in each of the steps, actually in all of the steps. All of the even steps are the naming steps, and all of the odd steps are decision and action steps. So what that means is the even steps basically tell us what the issue is, and then the odd steps are where we make a decision to take the action to remedy that. Bill says we identify the false self, the mask that we wear, and through a process, it is removed. We don't remove it. Step 6 and 7 are very clear about that. We are powerless to deal with it, but we are invited through willingness to take action to connect to a higher power that will, in fact, create that transformation, that spiritual awakening, that change in the way we think, feel, and behave. This is done to us, not by us, but not without us. Bill said to face and to be rid of the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. And what does Bill mean here? Blocking us from power, that power that is deep inside of us, that is available to us, that isn't us, but is available to us. These are the implications of steps 1 through 3. Bill continues with our liquor or whatever your addictive substance is but a symptom. We have been echoing this in the workshop. Yes, addiction is a problem, but it is not the problem. Bill just said it right there. Liquor is but a symptom of the problem. So we have to get down to the causes and conditions. This is Bill's invitation to step forward. Bill gives us all of the instructions to analyze and get down to the causes and conditions. This is why the slide on instincts, reactions, and emotions was so powerful, because it gets underneath the underneath to the understeer to the basic biology. In step 4 is a vital fact-finding mission that is also a personal inventory to prevent emotional and spiritual bankruptcy. We begin a personal inventory to take stock of our lives. Just as a business that fails to track its inventory risks going broke, avoiding a self-audit blocks our personal growth. Bill uses this business metaphor to motivate us by clearly defining the benefit of the work. It is a mission of both fact-finding and fact-facing. First, we find the facts that uncover the truth about ourselves. Then we address them so we can take action and accept reality. Ultimately, this process is an effort to discover the truth, not an excuse for shame, guilt, or negative judgment. It is simply about being honest with who we are. Saint Teresa of Avila is most famous for defining humility simply as walking in the truth. She taught that true humility requires deep self-knowledge and an honest acceptance of both your limitations and the grace you receive from your higher power. Our major goal of a fourth step inventory is to recognize and let go of our damaged goods, those habits and flaws that keep us stuck without looking back. To thrive and survive, we have to be totally honest with ourselves about our values and avoid self-delusions. Looking at how Bill describes it in the Big Book, an inventory is all about gathering the facts, facing them head on, and digging into the causes and conditions of our actions. It's a challenge, but essential learning in maintaining sobriety and freedom. So Bill says, first we searched out the flaws in our makeup which had caused our failure. It's not a new concept for any of us on our journey these past few months. We looked at page 62 where it says, so our troubles are of our own making, not circumstances and people, but our reactions to circumstances and people. Being convinced that self manifested in various ways was what had defeated us. We considered its common manifestations. Resentment is the number one offender. Being convinced that self manifested in various ways is the root, instincts are the fruit. When we do the column work, we search out the flaws in our makeup which caused our failure. Not people, places, and things, but our reaction to them. We are convinced that self-manifested in various ways was what had defeated us. Bill goes on to explain what his thinking is, saying that from it, resentment stem all forms of spiritual disease, from unmanageability to spiritual maladies. For we have been not only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. That's the second half of the first step. Unmanageability, and then this sentence, which confirms everything we have been learning. When the spiritual malady is overcome, unmanageability, the spiritual malady, we straighten out mentally and physically. We are not cured of our unmanageability, our spiritual malady. We have a daily reprieve contingent on leading our way of life, and we do, that spiritual malady is contained. And we live in a flow within us, behind a spiritual shield that protects us from the obsession that will take us back to the relapse in dealing with resentments. So we set them down on paper. Bill isn't going to say, you need to discuss this with somebody. He's going to make it very clear in each component of the step for inventory, the resentment and the fear and the sex, is going to confirm that this is writing about stuff in dealing with resentments. So we set them on paper. We list people, institutions, or principles. And we're just at the beginning of making our lists of the resentments that we are aware of. It's not a memory of a resentment. That's not what we're doing. And it's not looking back at a prior inventory to see what's on our list. The point is for you to search your soul, your feelings, your awareness, and your consciousness today. And we want to uncover our deep wounds to find our hidden resentments. And that starts by examining our current anger and irritation. If you need help pinpointing them, think about who annoys or irritates you the most. Being human means dealing with constant little mosquitoes, those small, naggy daily annoyances. But for a thorough personal inventory, we must look past the bugs and focus on the big shark bites. These are the massive, bone-crushing traumas like childhood abuse, toxic relationships, or betrayal. While managing small irritations matters eventually, true spiritual breakthroughs happen when we stop swatting at mosquitoes and face the sharks head on. And again, we need to remember this is not about a memory. For instance, I am here decades later and I can discuss my rage towards my mother because I have a memory of it all and I can describe it in emotional terms, but I have no emotions over it. I have feelings, I have memory, but not the feelings about that event. There has been a process of giving me freedom, which I will introduce to you at another time. But in terms of the way Bill lays it out, we are going to be very true to the big book with some expansion. The people category is pretty obvious. Most of our resentments are to deal with people, especially the ones close to us, like family members, especially parents, siblings, husbands, and especially partners, present or past. But again, I need to emphasize that this is not about a memory of a resentment. This is about a current feeling. It may have happened yesterday, or it may have happened decades ago. But do you still have a clenched jaw or fist or pit in your stomach when you think about that person or hear their name? And God forbid they walked in the room you were in and surprised you. What would your reaction look like? I thought I had resolved my big resentments, but what I found was there were bigger ones buried under the smaller ones that would be harder to tackle. And it was difficult, but it was the way my processing ensued. Some, when they get the concept, open up a floodgate and their lists become very long. Lots of people to write about. And then there are institutions such as the IRS, the military, government offices, or even our local church or religion, or perhaps the opposite of your political party. So it's this hardcore, deep, visceral Mount Vesuvius volcanic hot rage or anger. That is the stuff I am tempting you to look at. A lot of people say, oh boy, I just don't want to open those scars up again. They have been sewn up, closed. I put them away. They're history. I want to move forward, which is a wonderful sentiment. And it's great, except there is pus in the wound. Those scars won't heal if there is resentment. And they just don't want to know about it. And if you saw your doctor and he said to you, that lump looks like it could be cancerous, but I won't know until I do a biopsy, would you say, yeah, no, let's not do that because I'm afraid of what I might find? If you don't get the biopsy, you won't know. And if you don't know it is cancer, you will die. It's that simple. Not facing the truth will eventually kill us in any situation. Bill calls it the cancer of the soul that requires soul surgery. So somewhere around Herb is saying 5 now. He used to say 10. I suggest starting with mom and dad, if that's not too painful. But if you don't want to start with the harder ones, then start with a small list of maybe 5 or 6 people. And then take a look at your list and check it. Do you need to modify it? Do you need to go back and pick the ones that are substantive, or by your standards, meaning somewhere between 5 and 10? If you don't have that many, don't make them up to get to 10. But if you have that many or more than 10, just do the top 10. That will do for column 1. You will realize that eventually you can replace any name or circumstance in that dynamic, and it's all the same because the central actor in every play is me or you. And there aren't many variations on us. So whether you're addressing a man, woman, recent incident, or an incident 25 years old, or maybe 5 minutes ago, the dynamic will still be the same because it comes out of our reaction to people and circumstances. Don't dismiss anything and don't gloss over it. And we certainly don't want to be superficial. Work with a sponsor or step guide to gain guidance with regard to the depth and the numbers regarding the minimum and maximum. But for this workshop, 5 to 10 should be plenty. And if you can only come up with 5, that's fine. Work with that, as long as they're authentic resentments and or anger issues for you. And with 10, we will have enough. Even with 5, there's enough repetitiveness to confirm our insights. This work is the reason I gave you a participant agreement. It can create suffering, embarrassment, and in some instances, it might create a need to see a therapist. This is not simple work. This is pretty deep. On page 64, Bill says, we asked ourselves why we were angry. In most cases, it was found that our self-esteem, our pocketbooks, or ambitions, our personal relations, including sex, were hurt or threatened. So we were sore. We were burned up. So this is the second column. And looking at page 65, there is a column there titled, I'm resentful at Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown comes under that. So up here at column 1, we have Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown comes under that. So we're calling this column 1. They're not numbered in the book this way, so I actually added it to my book, and you can do that if it's helpful. And then next to this is the cause, which we're calling number 2. This is why we have the resentment towards column number 1. And next to that is column 3. With this explanation, you will understand as we talk about the columns what's actually going on. Just put the facts in when you fill out the columns. My employer, my wife, just those facts. But here it gets more important, and this is the point under the second column. This is not therapy. This is not catharsis. This is not journaling. This is a focused effort to identify the facts, the truth, as Bill has laid it out in this fashion. So take a look at Mr. Brown. Because of Mr. Brown's attention to my wife, and this is in the big book, how succinct is that? There is very little emotion there other than the obvious anger. And then there is the next item below that. He told my wife of my mistress. Well, dang, I am so angry. And then there is underneath that, and Mr. Brown may get my job at the office. This guy's coming at him at all scores. But notice the point is the succinctness of it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 words in the third term, in the third item. It's not a long discussion of the trials and the tribulations of being a victim. This is a capturing, a succinct picture of why he's angry. They betrayed me and they hurt me. It's very simple. We don't want to write a book. We don't want to get into the story. The story's full of foxholes. But what was it specifically? The more specific you can be, the better the work that you will do will be. So his is his attention to my wife, told my wife of my mistress, may get my job at the office. He may get my job at the office. Those are all very laser focused specifics. And he put all three of them in that one little box. So try to stay within the box. I know you're thinking I like to go outside the box, but the reason for staying in there is we want to be very pinpointed in the information. And if we start getting into the story and a long discussion, we lose sight of what we're really trying to look at. So keep it as accurate, short, and succinct as you can. So you should begin or have already begun or be done with column 1, your grudge list. Some of you will want to experiment with it, and that's fine. I'm introducing you to a process that will change your life. It doesn't matter how long you have been sober. If you haven't done this work the way I'm going to show you, it's going to blow your mind. And if there's anyone in the room that has done the column work this particular way or worked with me before and want to share their experience, that would be wonderful too. That is the end of the PowerPoint. So I'm going to hopefully answer tons of questions. And if it's helpful, if people are working on the column 3, if anybody's gotten to column 3, perhaps you're just done 1 and 2, but I think some of you have gone ahead to column 3. We can go over that also. But specifically, if you have questions about column 1 and 2, which is basically lining up the people and then lining up the cause of why you have the resentment to begin with.
I have to tell you that I did do a column 3, I did a column 4 too. But I am so embarrassed about sharing this that I thought I better raise my hand really quickly because I really don't want to read it, but part of me does want to read it. So, and I know that it would be helpful if I did read it. So that's where I'm coming from.
Tons of credit for your courage.
Thank you. Now I use the printouts from Herb. Is that okay? Because I had made so many of them that I can't.
That's fine. It's pretty much the same. There's a little word change that I make to make it more user-friendly. So you're going to come up with the same results. That's fine.
Okay, I'll give you a little, I just have to give you a little background on this, just a little tiny background, very, very little story. But this happened my first year in college. I was walking down the street with two girls. One of the girls was a homecoming queen. She had blonde hair, green eyes. She was gorgeous. Another gal was, she was from Dearborn too, but she was very attractive, but not like this homecoming queen. Okay, so when I resent these 2 frat boys that came along beside us, and they wanted to take the other 2 girls for a ride, but not me. Did it hurt, threaten, or interfere with my self-esteem? What is my deep belief about who I am? I'm a worthwhile person, and I'm not less important than a homecoming queen, and I don't know, I'm angry because they didn't want to take me for a ride. And my fear is I'm not pretty, I'm ugly, and I'm worthless. Okay, next is pride. How do I want other people to see me being treated? I want other people to see those frat boys falling all over me, begging me to be with them. And of course, my fear is that frat boys don't think I'm pretty enough. They just don't want to be. What is my ambition? I want I want to have facial surgery so my face looks just like a homecoming queen. I want facial surgery so my face is prettier. And my fear is I'm too afraid to do it. I just don't have the guts, and it's too expensive. Okay, security. What do I need in order to be okay? I need to accept myself and the way I look. Why? Because the way I look is reality. It is.
All right, I'm gonna stop you for a minute, Carol. So under the ambition,
Yeah.
we're talking about the people that we have the resentment towards.
What I
So
want them to
so
the
that
okay.
so the your offender, you'd put the name in there, the offender, whoever the offender is.
Mhm.
You want the offender to, and then you fill out what you need the offender to do.
Okay. I need those two frat boys to the first thing that came to mind. Oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. They had a terrible accident. I'm so angry at them. But what I really want them to do is to recognize that I am a worthwhile person.
Perfect.
Okay. So, so I have to accept reality if I'm going to keep my serenity. And my fear is I will not accept the reality, and that I'll always feel that I'm ugly and worthless. Personal relations. How do I expect this relationship should be? Consider. I expect mothers and fathers. I expect fraternity boys to be courteous and respectful of all women. And my fear is that fraternity boys are not courteous and not respectful at all. That is the reality, actually. Sex. What is my, well, same thing about women. Women should be very courteous and respectful of men and women. And my fear is women are not. Uh, um, a pocketbook. What is my affected value? Nothing should interfere or lessen with my emotional security. That's it.
Very good. Very good. I did have a little chuckle, certainly not at your expense, but it was very fun to hear you talk about this and very humbling. It's great to be that honest.
Thing to do these worksheets. And I felt like I wanted to read it, and I wanted to go first because I just wanted to pave the way so that other people will realize that they can share their secrets. I mean, this thought about being ugly and being unattractive and not worthwhile. This was my first year of college. I'm 77 years old now. I have held on to this feeling and resentment all my life. And it's very damaging. But I wanted to do it because, first of all, I didn't want to do it. And I wanted to get your feedback on it. And also, I wanted to do it so it will give other people courage to reveal their deepest, darkest secrets. That's it.
I appreciate that immensely. I thank you very much. And you did great. We got to remember as we're going through the worksheet, because this happens frequently with people, as we go down those numbers, we start losing track of where we are, and we forget that we're talking about perhaps a specific resentment or the person behind the resentment. So sometimes the worksheet doesn't quite make sense or work out the way it should, and it's just because we've gone off track a little bit.
Did I go off track?
Just with that one section where I had you go back and make it the offender and what the ambition would be around the offender. Very good.
I did account for, but you don't want me to read that right now, do you?
I don't have a problem with you doing it, but I don't know how other people feel. I don't want to confuse them or jump ahead.
I'll wait.
Yeah. I mean, if you have another column 3, you certainly could do that.
All right. When I resent Donald Trump for dismantling the United States government, what is my deep belief about who I am? I'm an American citizen with rights and freedoms under the Constitution of the United States. And my fear is Donald Trump doesn't care about my rights and freedoms. He only cares about enriching himself and his family. Pride. How do I want other people to see me being treated? Others should see Donald Trump treating me as a valued person with rights and freedoms under the Constitution. Ambition. What do I want to happen?
Wait a minute, do your fear.
Oh, my fear.
Yep.
My fear is that uh, doesn't view me as a valued person at all. And just, doesn't care. Ambition. I would like to see Donald Trump.
Oh, no.
I would like to see him dead and gone. But what I wrote down was Donald Trump and the MAGA regime thrown out of office, made powerless so our democracy can be restored and even made better. My fear is that Donald Trump will reign forever, be a king. Security. I need Trump, Congress, the Supreme Court rid of MAGA Republicans. Why? Because billionaires to be taxed. Why? To restore democracy and make this a fair nation. Personal relations. I expect elected officials to express the will of the people, and I expect billionaires to be taxed to pay their fair share. My fear is that none of this will happen. And what is my belief about men? Men should be kind, respectful, and fair. My fear is men are not kind, they're not respectful, and they're not fair. Same thing with women. And my pocketbook. What is my effective value? Nothing should interfere with my emotional security. My emotional security will be constantly under threat. My well-being will be constantly under threat with Donald Trump as president. That's it.
Very good. You could expound a little bit on the effect it's had on your life. You could do your quality of life, your relationship with politics, with people, with friends that believe in him.
I do have an addiction to doom scroll, and that wastes a lot of time. And I really have to check myself with that because I could just sit all day and just doom scroll one story after another, and I know that that's not healthy behavior.
It is not. It's a process addiction. I am going to look forward to your fourth column on Donald Trump. It's going to be very enlightening.
Very enlightening.
Yes, very enlightening.
Yep.
Did anyone else do a Donald Trump that would like to share with us?
I hope I was helpful. That's all.
Absolutely. If nothing else, it shows us how the process works. And I don't mean the government, I mean the worksheet.
On online last week. So I contacted you and I'm here on the fourth step, which is really kind of funny.
Yeah.
But I don't have any of this material and I'm loving this. Was great. And I would love to have a copy of the part of it, and I'd love to have a copy of all the sheets. And I just love the courage that I'm hearing here tonight of just the willingness to just put it right out there about what we are processing. And this has just been awesome.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about the other aspects of like the homework because it was kind of like I forget how to pronounce it, but it was kind of revealing to me. Like just looking at, like for example, take away my difficulties, like just like taking a step back, even looking at, the step 3 that really leads into the fact finding. So like take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help. Thy power, thy love, and thy way of life may I do. They will always like, just as an example, as an entry point. A lot of times I'm just really concerned about me. You know what I mean? Unfortunately. So I'm not really necessarily wanting God to remove these so that I can be of service, but seeing it in black and white is just another reminder that that's usually the order and that, and And a lot of times I'll kind of fluff that off. And then also just this whole idea that even just taking a step back to three, that it a lot of times at this point, in some ways it's kind of interesting. Like they talk about this as restoration. I've been reminded that I used to have a personal relationship with God when I was a small child. Then I lost it with all these addictions. And I was just thinking, like at moments when we were, the first part of the assignment, I was like, you know what? I've kind of gone back to having a personal relationship with my own higher power, which is kind of really good. And I say that because like one of the other lines is it's better to meet with God alone than with someone who doesn't understand. And at this point, a lot of times I have times when I talk to people about God and they don't know what I'm talking about. And a lot of times I don't give a what. Like if they don't understand what I'm saying, whether it's somebody in program or somebody else, I'm just like, well, okay, you don't understand. It's all good. Which is like also like new behavior. um, I think though, like kind of going back to some of the words we were supposed to look up. I remember like the stock and trade, or that idea of like the inventory, and I looked up all the different words. Is that the stock and trade is just like sort of like what you do in a business, and then you want to get rid of the saleable goods. And I got to be honest, up until last year when we did it, and I took this actually into my other home group where we do the steps regularly. But I think for many, many years, I just stepped over that whole stock and trade. I just pretended that I knew what it meant for many, many years. And then the first time we did this, I was like, I don't want to pretend like I have for many, many years. I know what it means. Let me look it up. And then, it's exactly like a store inventory. Like, okay, that's not any good. Let me get rid of it. And it still kind of baffles me even when I look at my life, or my thinking, that there's still a lot of stuff in my life that I hold on to, but I know that if I really looked at it like a store, I would throw that away, because in the store they're going to throw it away. That's no good. Let me throw it away. And so, I mean, there's just other stuff like dishonesty, anger, looking at it, infidelity, just the idea. And I mean, like another concept that wasn't necessarily part of the assignment, but technically, like when I'm making these people a higher power, because that's what I do with my resentments, I really am sort of in some ways being like practicing infidelity, because they've become the higher power. You know what I mean? So, because I'm focused on these people and I don't have time for God, because I got to tell you how much I don't like these people. And I got to tell you, maybe a couple times, and have two or three conversations about these people that I really don't forget about it. Like, and then also like the concept that I'm fooling myself about principles. And because my principles probably really aren't, it's kind of a weird thing. Like I can be in a good place, but when I'm in the resentment, it's all like I notice my behavior gets really bad, and then my principles go out the window every single time that I experience a resentment. And then I just sort of like went through some of these other questions. So I think for me to wrap up, I got to be honest that so far I have only like it's going to be the same people from last time, to be honest. The list I have is essentially the same people from last time. It's a regurgitation over and over and over with a little bit of a different slant. But I'm not going to make up a story. Like it's really like going to be the same list of people, and really the core people are me, my father, my mother,
Right.
and God. And God comes up because and God comes up because sometimes I still want him to be Santa Claus. And So that's really when I wrote the list, and I haven't gotten into the other stuff yet, but I don't. There's nobody new here. There's not any new secrets. I don't have any secrets. And to be honest, it may be because I've done this so often, but I think like the real key for me that's very, very helpful is especially just the format that you guys have, because it really has me see like this is really how I want them to perceive me in terms of my relationship with this resentment. And then the way you guys do the fourth, like the fourth column is very enlightening as well. But I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be some of the same stuff. Yeah.
Before you leave, why do you think you're still suffering from the same resentments?
It's not the exact same ones, if that makes sense. Like I have, you know, like to me, if you have a different issue, it's not the same resentment. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
so
that's true.
so so if my father said something sarcastic and I found him being mildly abusive, which he's done recently over the last month, then that's a new resentment. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not an
Yeah,
old resentment.
right,
So that's sort of like what I'm talking about. Or like
right.
with my mother, she does stuff on a regular basis that's brand new in 2026 that I don't like. You know what I mean? So that's
Yeah,
not really about what happened in the past. Though
right.
I will say for the record, because I do want to get one positive thing on the record. I did have a powerful God shot that I could share is that and it's along the lines of four, but I didn't know all of this stuff about like my childhood. Like I got really clear on this thing that happened in my childhood as far as like my first job. Like my first job wasn't a job, it was actually a business. And I just figured that out while as part of the assignment. So it's not necessarily a resentment, but I'm like crystal clear that and I mention it because it colored my whole life. Because like when I was doing other stuff, I just sort of like didn't necessarily I wasn't necessarily open to work for others because I was kind of like programmed to work for myself. So it explained a lot of things, including some of the things I'm going to put on the step four again that I didn't see in like 20 years. You know what I mean? I didn't see any of this stuff. So I don't
Right.
know if any of that stuff that I said is helpful for others,
It is. It
but
is
it's
because
helpful for me.
it confirms what I've said, which is we do this in layers, meaning um, we think we get to a place where we're done, maybe particularly even with a certain person, and then something comes up and we go, wow, I really thought I was done. And it's because of those layers that we dismantle that we end up getting to a new place or kind of a bad place, but we get to another different place with the same person again, especially like our parents, because they're in our lives the whole time, unless we've completely cut ties with them. So it's inevitable that new resentments will come up. And for some people, that daily step 10 will take care of that before it gets into a big enough resentment where you've got to do a full on fourth step. And that's kind of why we want to do that 10th step every day so that our resentments don't build up and we're sitting down doing another round of, the fourth step. Either way, you got to deal with it. So that, that works out fine. And as far as the inventory thing, it's more an accounting than it is an inventory because an inventory, like you said, is about physical things. But the reason that businesses do an accounting or an inventory is to get the best bang for their dollar as far as shelf space goes. So when we get rid of all that stuff on the shelves of ours that isn't working, it opens up the spaces for us to put the good stuff up. And that's why we do the inventory. It's to eliminate the bad crap that we're hanging on to that isn't working and it's not inducive to what we need in our lives. So yeah, it's kind of odd that it's called an inventory or he compares it to a business, but it does make sense if you think about it a little bit outside of Bill's box and Bill being back in basically another century at this point. So keep going with it, Mark. You are still uncovering, and if you got resentments coming up and they're people like your parents, that's perfectly normal. That's actually expected. That's how it's going to happen, which also shows us why this work never ends. We don't get to an end and say, oh, I'm done. I did it all, because stuff keeps happening to us. And we have to keep going with this mindset.
I just wanted to share that I was able to apply. I've been, excuse me, I've been out of the country for a couple of weeks, and I would love to tell you that I was, just totally serene the whole time. And the day that I flew home to get up like 5, and I had to be downstairs at 5 in the morning or something to get on this bus to go to the airport. And we got to the airport, and from my childhood, my mother had taught us that if you were right, then you had to fight, and you just had to wear the other people down. You just had to talk louder, stronger, more forceful, and make them see your way. She just didn't believe that in circumstances and situations that there were times. She just thought if that happened, then you hadn't made a big enough scene or whatever. So anyway, I got to the airport and I was supposed to be on 2 flights, a flight from Oslo, Norway to Amsterdam, and then the flight back to LA. And we got to Amsterdam, we got to Norway, to the airport, and we started getting emails saying our flight had been delayed, our flight had been delayed, our flight had been delayed, and we should look at this board, which never changed the whole time. And this flight turned out to be delayed 2 hours. And they kept saying, just look at the board. And there was nothing on the board. And I could feel that, my mother's words, I could feel that agitation that I needed to lash out and do something. And I got like that God shot, that God saying to me, if you do that, that will set the tone for the whole day. And I am basically powerless over KLM Airlines. I'm totally powerless over these people. Am I wrong? No. And I think that's the one thing that I've learned here in the workshop. I can have a resentment about something and be right, but I don't have the power to, it's kind of like the Donald Trump stuff. I can be right in the way I feel. I'm just not powerful enough to do something about it on my own. And I got that moment of clarity that this was going to be at the minimum, it was going to be like a 15-hour day, and I was tired, and I was going to be pissed off, and I could choose to be less pissed off by just letting it go, because there was nothing I could do. And the fact that I got something to eat, like a small wrap thing, that was $25. I'm powerless over the cost of living in Norway. I just am. And so for me, the day was a whole sequence of letting it go, this is like, I'm 78 years old. This is incredibly new behavior for me, because I'm the person who would battle. I'm not New York. I was raised in New York City, and I'm Jewish. We were taught to battle, no matter what the stake. And I chose not to be that person. And I was tired, but it didn't ruin my whole trip, which had been lovely. And that truly was God. Truly was God. Am I resentful at KLM? Yeah, but I don't think I'm going to even write about it, because it's not worth my time. I'm not going to change KLM Airlines or the other airlines or the cost of living. And I think that's maybe something is for me, is to choose my battles, to choose the 5 or 10 things that I'm going to put on my list. And that I'll feel better about. And so that for me really made my life better for that whole day. And I just wanted to share that, because I learned that here.
And you know what, Rochelle, that's a great share, because that's the outcome that we want to gain in our lives. We want to sit in an airport and say, this isn't in my hands. I could scream at somebody, I could get resentful and angry, and my blood pressure
Right.
will go up and my blood sugar will go down, and all that crazy stuff. And or we accept life as it comes at us is reality. And the reality
Right.
is your flight's late.
Right.
And so that is really what you've learned in this, is that there are some things that we can fight, but there are so many more things that we just need to accept as
Right.
what they are. It's the reality of
Right.
life.
Right. And for me, I mean, it added on a third flight because my flight was long gone. Those people were over the water, whatever. And so I wound up flying. They said you could go to Seattle and then fly. Okay, I am powerless over this,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to allow my day and my blood pressure to be ruined by this. So that was really, really powerful. And it doesn't make me, because I could hear my mother's voice saying, "Oh no, you're just being stupid. You should fight this. Now you should ask for money back." Now, no, I don't have to do that. I don't have to carry her words in my brain and act on it. And it took me a long time to get to this point. So anyway, thank you.
But you've arrived,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
been a good journey.
Right. Right.
Great work. We missed you.
I just want to say I get a lot out of what everybody shares. I got so much out of what you both shared today. That was like really powerful.
It is important to hear the shares, to hear that's the experience, strength, and hope that we need in order to implement this work into our lives, to hear that it does work. Who wants to do all this work and not know that it does any good? That would really be crappy. So to hear the confirmation that it does work and how it works is always tremendous.
I have a share about this. It's interesting that the past two shares have actually made opened up my mind a little bit about it because um, I haven't gotten to that point yet where I can let it go, where I can let it, let it be and say I'm not in control of this. Um, and something happened this past weekend, which was very, very, it made me very angry. And all I wanted to do was lash out at the person who did it. And I didn't do it because of something that somebody else said to me. And I do harbor a resentment about it. And I'm going to do a resentment sheet about this. But the interesting thing is that I reacted in with anger, and I reacted in a way that I wanted to get back at that person. I wanted to let them see how angry I was. And what I could have done was I could have said that this is the way it is and let it pass by and move on, and then try to correct it some other way, which would have definitely unstressed me.
Right.
But as it was, I was stressed out for 2 days. And even today, I was thinking about it a little bit and getting angry about it and working myself up a little bit. But this ha what I'm saying is that this has not, at least in my mind or in my nature, changed me yet. But I'm really hoping for the change. I'm hoping to be able to do what Carol and what oh geez, what Rochelle said just a moment ago, because it really is true. You have to, you have to be able to see it when it's happening. You have to be able to focus on it, and then you have to be able to say, I'm not going to form a resentment about this. I'm going to let it pass by. And that type of self-awareness is the kind of thing that I lack sometimes, and that I have to let it become a second nature, but that's a hard thing. I mean, how do you let something become second nature? You just have to, be conscious and try. And I tend to just get angry and fly, and real character flaw. I mean, I really fly off the handle sometimes and just want to react, just knee-jerk kick, you know. And so that was really good for me to hear that because that actually put things
So,
in
so are you
perspective.
saying you are making some strides?
Oh, well, I hopefully within the past 5 minutes have made some strides, but
You're making strides.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
definitely.
5 minutes was a real deal maker.
Good, good. That's all it takes, you know. All it takes
Sometimes it
is
does.
one moment of awareness can
Yes,
change a lifetime of
right.
pain and suffering. It really can.
Remind me,
That's spiritual awakening.
right. Remind me about that though when I forget about
I'll
it.
try to remember.
Okay.
Remind me to remember.
Good to be back. I've been away for a couple of weeks. Um, my list has is so little right now, and it's mainly institutions rather than people. So I'm happy to report that. And then and I love your new list of the step of column 3. First of all, I'm a visual person, so I love that green. And then I just think it's much better a system for me. So I'm going to work on that.
That's excellent.
And you sent us a video of
Yes.
what was it called? His name is Gabor Matt.
Yeah. Gabor Mate, yeah.
Yeah. So I've been practicing his the way he does that 10 minutes of silence and writing, and I'm getting in touch with my true self, just like you were saying, how our true selves are covered by layers and layers.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
able to brush aside a little bit of that horrible marshland that I've created over the years. And so I've only done it for about 5 or 6 nights now, but I'm getting in touch with my true authentic self, which is really my higher power. I think it's like an alignment with my higher power.
Yes.
So
As co-creators, Cesar, that's the discovery that we become one and the same.
yes. So I think it's a really powerful exercise for me anyway. I've been enjoying it. So I'll see how it goes. And I've been doing it for 10 minutes. I'm going to try to do it a little longer as I go along. And he says to do it for 30 days. So
Yep.
I'm going to attempt 30 days.
You'll have to tell us how it goes. I sent that out because when I watched it, I thought, it talks about that space where a lot of theories say that that's where God resides, is in the space between everything else, in that moment of silence.
Yes.
And when we are surrounded by unmanageability, silence is very uncomfortable for us. We don't like that place of just nothing. So when we get to a place of recovery where we can sit in silence, which is basically contemplation, we really can connect with our higher power and become that feeling of oneness. And it's such a lovely feeling. So I sent it to everybody because we missed, and I figured if you had time to go ahead and look at the video. If you haven't watched it, take a look at it. It's not a long one, but he does this whole thing on getting into that space where we're totally in the moment. We're not future jumping. We're not jumping down the past. We're not thinking about other people. We're in that moment of silence. And it's very, very powerful for anybody that, meditates or does the contemplation work already. It's worth watching.
And the fact that it's writing, because I meditate, not every day, but when I meditate, I don't do the writing. I'm just sitting. But the writing for me is just opening up this. It gets me through that. I'm calling it marshland. I don't know. It's through the tangles of the different noises in my head and in my body, and I'm brushing them aside and getting, into my true self, which is really the little girl in me,
Right.
that I've kind of like left aside for so long.
Yep. That's wonderful.
So thank you for that. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for telling. I forgot I sent it, so I'm glad you mentioned it. And I'm glad that you got something out of it because, I saw it and I thought, I'm just going to send it. People don't have to watch it. But I just found that it was really, really impactful and helpful with the whole contemplation and touching that higher power that does reside in those silent places that we generally run from. We don't want to be in silence. So I would definitely recommend it to anyone that's looking for something to do with contemplation.
A funny thing about what you were saying, like when you're doing your daily inventory,
Mm-hmm.
like to be a nice person is to return the shopping cart.
It's service. Yeah.
I have a different, yeah, that's service and helpful. I have a different take on it. I just want to put it out there. There's, and all these stores, people get assigned for like an hour to be out in the parking lot and return the carts. It's part of their job. And they often relish that because then they get out of the store, and be on their phone and be outside. So I feel it's a service to not return it. I just want to put it out.
Okay, Susan, you keep thinking that.
Yeah. And I spoke to
I see that. I see that perspective.
that
Absolutely.
we're glad we have this duty. I spoke to a couple of them at Trader Joe's. They're like, no, we like when it's our time to go out here. Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, when I go to the store, the parking lot's full of them and you can't even get one up at the front of the store when you need to shop.
Now
So
that is a problem. Yeah.
it is a
Yeah.
problem.
Okay.
So I bring mine back for the next guy.
That is, yeah.
to go
Where
to
I
all-
shop, that's never the case. I don't, that's interesting. Okay.
Say it again, Lonnie. You were breaking up.
You have to go to Aldi and have the 25 cents that you have.
I was thinking of that. You know what I do? I give my carriage to someone else and say, save your quarter.
Oh, wow. That is cool,
That's real
Lisa.
service. Because they don't know who you are. It's not like, hey, you gave your carriage away for free. Yeah. So
Awesome.
there are
Thank you.
many everyday in and out things that you can do. Sometimes you might be at a light and you let the other person go first. It can be that simple. It doesn't have to be going to a homeless shelter and spending time there giving service. It's everyday things that we do that we don't even think about. And it just makes us better people. I mean, it is service for other people, but at the end of the day, it comes back to us twofold. And it makes us want to be more giving and caring in other areas. So, take it as far as you want to take it. Some people see speaking in a meeting as service. Which it is. If you can step up and speak up, you're helping somebody in that room. That is service. It's caring. So wherever you can, go for it. Once a day, say, today I'm going to be on the lookout for somewhere I can do service. Sometimes it's picking trash up on the side of the road. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's just being a good human being, really, is what it's all about. That's what it comes down to. Get up every day and try to be a good human being. And trust me, you'll have a lot less resentments if you do. Less work. All right.
I have another alternative way to look at the let in the traffic thing.
Oh,
Just don't be too nice. Don't penalize everyone behind you to stop and let somebody come out when it's not that person's turn to come out. Okay.
it's funny because I was recently in England with my oldest daughter, and I was driving, and in England, pedestrians don't have the right of way. The car does. So I kept stopping to let people cross because I was worried about them. And she was yelling at me, and I was getting beeped at, and people were going around me, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't even believe people do this, that pedestrians don't have the right of way. It was so hard to not let people cross the street.
I totally get that. The
Yeah,
other way is so logical, and just let them go when we go by, after we
right.
go by. I love
Yeah, yeah. I got into a lot of trouble with that.
it.
So England's not the place to do your caring work.
On the road anyhow, right?
No. All right. So if everyone would like to unmute, and we can do our famous serenity prayer as a group, which makes me chuckle every time I listen to it. It is. It's
It is
great.
it's like a ball of confusion.
It's perfect. It's just
Yeah.
perfect. All right. God, please grant us the serenity
Serenity
to
To
accept
to
accept
set
things
the
that we
things
cannot
that cannot
change,
change,
the
the
courage to
courage
change
things
we
we
can,
can,
and the
and the wisdom
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 to
to
know the
know.
know the
difference.
difference. Thank
that
you.
will
And
not
Lord,
mine be
keep
done.
coming back. Great
Thank
work,
you.
everybody.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank
Thank you,
you, everybody.
Lisa.
All right.